Hello, everybody. It's IAmTheLionRider, and welcome back after little bit of a lengthy break. But we're finally back at the Roger Williams Park Zoo Let's Build series. So I took a little bit of a hiatus to work on a few other things, and Corona has obviously created some difficulties for pretty much everyone. So naturally, I had to deal with a few things. But I'm back now. I finally got my laptop in, so episodes should finally be a lot more frequent. And yeah, so without further ado, let's pretty much get started. So this week's episode, we are picking up where we last left off in our North American section, doing the Red Wolf episode. So the Red Wolves are basically one of the big three North American animals in the zoo, and there's not much to be said about them. Red wolves are basically like the kind of intermediary between a coyote or a wolf, so they're kind of sometimes called coy wolves. But for this exhibit, I basically had to kind of work with the terrain a little bit to bridge between the African and North American sections, so you can see me like kind of making a little pathway connecting the two. Now, I should mention, this pathway is not actually in use in the current zoo layout. So this used to be in operation back during the days of the polar bears. I don't know why they removed them, even though, like, to this day, the polar bear exhibit, now the bald eagle and golden eagle exhibit, is still functional, but they removed that path, and now it's kind of a maintenance path that they only use for, like, emergencies. But I had to make it anyway, so I kind of mess with it a little bit, because it's kind of weird because now I have to like mess with the elevation. And I should mention that the harbor seal exhibit that's off to the side, I know people have been wondering where that episode is. I've been kind of putting it off just because I didn't want to make a harbor seal mod yet. I was kind of hoping that I could see like maybe some off chance potential that we could see a seal or aquatic expansion or something maybe this summer, but it's looking unlikely, so I'm probably gonna have to experiment, and I have a few theories on how to do the seal. But so I will be working on that soon, but for now, expect next episode will be the bald eagle exhibit, and we'll go from there. So back to talking about the actual exhibit we're doing this episode. The Red Wolf exhibit isn't super complex in layout. It's kind of a nice forested area, and part of its forestiness is low visibility. It's actually a very terrible exhibit from a guest perspective, because of how heavily forested it is and how much foliage there is later on. It's actually really difficult to see the wolves. I remember the old red wolves they had. I never saw them ever. Like, it was like always like a running joke. Like, okay, we can skip the wolves because they're never out, because you could just never find them. And it's because of this little hill that I'm making right now. So in the actual zoo, this is a little wolves den, and it's where they usually like raise their pups and stuff. It's literally like an artificial wolves den. Now the issue is, because wolves normally hang out in these dens a lot, you can barely see them. So, like I said, for a while, the old red wolf was a female, and she had a few litters of pups and stuff, but she would never come out of that hole. So even though at one point there was like 5 or 6 red wolves in this exhibit, I mean, most of them were pups, but still, you never saw any of them. It was literally just like a foliage exhibit that you could never see. But I will say, the last time I visited the zoo back in March, I did see the new red wolf they have. It's a young female, and she's very active. She's almost like a nice golden retriever or German shepherd or something, like just happy to see people and stuff. So she'll run up and down and do kind of laps around the exhibit. So the actual den that I'm working on right now, in the actual exhibit, there's a lot of like sticks and rocks and stuff that kind of make up the den, and part of the issue I'm having right now is I have to use the in-game terrain tools to like try and manipulate it so that I can get it so that the wolf can physically go into the den, while also like having it be an overhang that isn't super large. So because of the game's voxelization, like density and stuff, it's a little tricky, but I eventually settle on something that, you know, looks pretty good. I don't know if this is the final incarnation, but this is close to what I eventually wanted. So I also got to use a lot of the North American trees and stuff. So I got some birch trees, pine trees, and like some of the other foliage and stuff that I used in like the pronghorn exhibit and surrounding area and stuff. And I kind of like it because it's a nice contrast from like when I was doing all the African stuff, which was just like, oh, we need acacia trees, and then in the background it's just sand and rocks and stuff. But I was able to get a lot of like trees and stuff in here. And it's why I'm actually excited to go into the Asia section of the zoo, because that has a lot of like potential for like just cool rock formations and trees and that sort of thing. But these trees are, like I was saying, from a guest perspective, the downside to this exhibit. It's just so hard to see the wolves just because there's so much foliage blocking them, which is good for them because they need their privacy, but again, annoying if you want to see the wolves. And then what I'm building right now is, it's a small little holding area for the wolves. It's kind of similar to the pronghorn exhibit or holding area that I did last episode. It's kind of like a makeshift wooden shack type situation. It actually kind of works with the like rustic North American, you know, aesthetic they have going for it. But yeah, it's basically just a small little wooden shelter with a chain link fence and stuff. And it's just a proper shelter area for the wolves when they're not, you know, in their den, you know, because the den can only go so far because it's not really a full-on overhang. It's just kind of a small little hole. And basically, like, this isn't going to be a long episode because, like I said, the exhibit itself isn't super complicated or anything. But I'm just basically placing a lot of little grass pieces and flowers down. And that's pretty much it. So now the only thing I had really left to do for this episode is to connect up the paths that we made. So I had to just take the kind of wooden picket fence that we made last episode and just kind of copy it and go all the way up this sloped hill. So that was a thing that took me a little bit, but I eventually get around to it. I should mention, this is technically a modded episode, but I didn't include the actual creation of the red wolf from the timber wolf just because it was so mundane. Like, it really wasn't super interesting. It was just kind of making a texture pattern for the wolf, and then I made a little bit of I kind of thinned it out so that it's not like as fluffy and big as the normal wolf. But that's the only reason why. You'll see it at the end, though. It is technically a modded animal. And I think this one, due to some requests from my friends and stuff, I'll probably include on the workshop. So you guys can check it out there. But as we're pretty much finishing up this fence, we're basically at the end of the episode. So here you go. You can finally see the red wolf in all of its glory. And I want to thank you guys for watching. I promise I'm going to keep the series up. I know it's been a bit, but stay tuned. And in the next episode, we're going to be doing the eagle exhibit. So thank you guys, and I'll see you later.